What's your level of English? Let's find out. Today you'll answer 10 questions to determine your level of English. Are you beginner, intermediate, or advanced? Each question will test a different skill. First, you'll complete the full test. After the test, we'll review the questions and answers together so you can improve your level. And at the end, you'll know your current level and what areas you need to improve. Welcome back to JForrest English. Of course, I'm Jennifer. Now let's start the test. Question 1, I'm dedicated to my English. A, improve. B, improving. C, improvement. The correct answer is B. I'm dedicated to improving my English. Now remember, first we'll complete the full test and then I'll explain why B is correct and why the others are incorrect. And you can download the free lesson PDF with all the explanations and you can quiz your friends with it too. Question 2. If you don't know the name of something, you should say A, how do you call this? B, how is this called? C, what do you call this? The correct answer is C, what do you call this? Question 3, I'll call you after I A, will get home. B, get home. C, got home. The correct answer is B, I'll call you after I get home. Question 4, meeting people from different countries, the best part of my job. A, is. B, are. C, being. The correct answer is A, meeting people from different countries is the best part of my job. Question 5, she recommended on vacation. A, me go. B, going. C, to go. The correct answer is B, she recommended going on vacation. Question 6, have you ever been to A, Times Square. B, the Times Square. C, a Times Square. The correct answer is A, Times Square. Have you ever been to Times Square? Question 7, the customer was very because the order arrived 2 days late. A, frustrating. B, frustrate. C, frustrated. The correct answer is C, the customer was very frustrated. Question 8, this is a listening exercise. Your task is to write down exactly what you hear. I'll say it 3 times. She's a feisty little one, isn't she? She's a feisty little one, isn't she? She's a feisty little one, isn't she? The answer is she's a feisty little one, isn't she? Question 9, she's feisty. This means she's A, full of anger. B, full of passion. C, full of determination. The correct answer is C, full of determination. Question 10, write this sentence in the emphatic form. The sentence is, I worked today. This sentence in the emphatic form is, I did work today. So how did you do with this test? Share your score in the comments. And now, let's review the answers together. Question 1, I'm dedicated to improving my English. Here, the sentence structure is to be dedicated to And then you need a gerund, which is your verb in ing. That's why the answer is B. And you need this because I'm dedicated to functions as a preposition. And the grammatical rule is preposition plus gerund. You can also use to be dedicated to plus a noun. So you could say, I'm dedicated to my English.
I don't know what it's for, but I'm dedicated to this family.
Question 2, if you don't know the name of something, you should say, what do you call this? Now, I hear many students use option A and B, even my most advanced students, but in English, how is not used. There are different ways to ask this, but they would start with what. What do you call this? What is this? What is this called?
What is this called?
Question 3, I'll call you after I. Yes, you need the present simple get home. After plus present simple. That's the grammatical rule. It's not just after, it's also with when. When the meeting ends, present simple. Now your next part is in the future. I will, I'll call you. The same applies to as soon as, once. I graduate. That is the present simple. Now the future, I'll apply for a job. This is a very common mistake I hear. Question 4, did you get this one right? Meeting people from different countries. Now notice countries, that looks plural, but the subject is meeting. There's one gerund. Now, one gerund is conjugated as third person singular. That's why the answer is. Because if you were to summarize the entire subject, you would say this. This is the best part of my job. It's singular. Now, you could have two gerunds and make it plural. For example, meeting people from different countries and traveling first class are the best parts, because now it's plural, of my job. So two gerunds, that would be third person plural.
This is the best part of my job.
Question 5, she recommended going on vacation. I hear option A so frequently from non-native speakers that it almost sounds normal, because I've heard it so often. But it's not grammatically correct, because recommend must be followed by a gerund. Now the verb recommend is your conjugated verb. There is an alternative sentence structure that natives commonly use. She recommended I go on vacation. So the alternative structure is recommend plus clause. A clause is simply a subject plus verb plus object. It's a complete sentence. But you cannot use me. She recommended me, because me is an object pronoun, and it is not recommend plus object pronoun. Question 6. Have you ever been to Times Square? Now, proper nouns don't use articles. Times Square is a proper noun. However, some proper nouns use the in the name, and you simply have to memorize these. For example, you must say, have you ever seen the Eiffel Tower? It would be grammatically incorrect without the. Or last year, I saw the Statue of Liberty. But let's take a photo of Times Square. Let's meet at Central Park. Again, you must simply memorize these landmarks.
Remember when we went to Central Park and rented boats?
Question 7. I hear a lot of mistakes with this one. The customer was very frustrated. So frustrated describes how someone feels. Frustrating describes the thing that causes the feeling. So you can say the situation was frustrating. It causes the feeling. You could absolutely say the customer was frustrating. I had a phone call with the customer, and now I am frustrated because the customer was frustrating. It caused the feeling in me.
It was frustrating, to say the least.
Question 8 was the listening exercise. Did you write down every word? If you did not, you cannot get a point for this. So let's review the pronunciation together, because this is how natives speak. She's. But we have that article. So we're going to connect those together, and it's going to sound like she's a, she's a, she's a, she's a, z, because so that SA creates a z, a voice. She's a feisty. You may not be familiar with this word, so the pronunciation and the spelling may have confused you. She's a feisty. She's a feisty. Now notice I didn't say little, I said lil, lil. Native speakers often take the word little and reduce it to lil, lil, lil. She's a feisty little one. And then isn't she? But I did not pause between one, isn't she? I said it, one, isn't she? She's a feisty little one, isn't she?
She's a feisty little one.
And question 9 was a test of your vocabulary. And if you know more advanced adjectives rather than your common ones. So feisty, although not the most commonly used, is absolutely part of a native's vocabulary, and it has a very specific meaning. Full of determination is the best option out of the 3. A feisty person is bold, strong-willed, and assertive. So full of determination is the best way to summarize that. So let's look at an example of when you would use this. Let's say there's a child, maybe 7 years old, and this child says, "No, mommy, I don't need your help. I want to do it myself." Now maybe your friend's over and witnesses this and says, "Wow, she's a feisty little one, isn't she?" That 7-year-old is full of determination. She's strong-willed. We often use this adjective to describe animals. So for example, "Oh look, that puppy is barking at that big dog." And then someone could comment, "Wow, she's a feisty little one, isn't she? Full of determination, strong-willed, assertive."
Oh, she's a feisty little one.
Question 10, you were asked to take the past simple, which is a common structure, and change it into the emphatic form, which is not the most commonly used, but again, native speakers have this as part of our vocabulary, and it communicates a very specific meaning. Now, of course, the past simple structure is subject plus base verb, and then you add ed, or there's simply an irregular verb. The emphatic past simple structure is subject plus did plus base verb. But we don't use this all the time. We use this in a very specific way. We use it to emphasize, to strongly confirm, or to clarify. So if you're not doing one of those 3 things, you should not use the emphatic form. So let's say my friend says, "You didn't work today, right?" So my friend assumes I did not work. That's the past simple. But I want to clarify this. So I can say, "I did work today." That is an example of when you would use the emphatic. Now you're probably wondering, what's your level? Well, if you got 0 to 2 answers correct, you're at the A1 level. 3 to 4 answers correct, A2 level. 5 to 6 answers correct, the B1 level. 7 to 8 answers correct, B2 level. 9 answers correct, you're C1. And if you got all 10 correct and you're being honest about the fact that they are truly correct, every single word in that listening exercise, for example, then you are at the C2 level. So share your level in the comments. And do you want me to keep quizzing your English? If you do, put let's go, put let's go in the comments. And of course, make sure you like this lesson, share it with your friends, and subscribe so you're notified every time I post a new lesson. And you can get this free speaking guide where I share 6 tips on how to speak English fluently and confidently. You can click here to download it or look for the link in the description. And here's another lesson I know you'll love. Watch it now.